Hey, what's going on, everyone? E3 in terms of major press conferences is over, and it's been an interesting and insightful E3 for all three major platform holders, I feel. I've had my thoughts on Microsoft. I'll roll it with my thoughts on Nintendo later on because I want their treehouse to finish before I do. But now it's time to talk Sony. In regards to their E3 presser, I thought it was long, boring, and fragmented as hell. Certainly not their best. In fact, it was one of their worst, I feel. And I don't particularly want to see that format return. From them because I felt that pacing-wise, it just didn't work at all. And well, if they do return, they need to clean it up. Quite a lot. But in truth, I don't want to focus on their presser right now because, like I said, I didn't enjoy it. I thought it was garbage. Or I don't even actually want to focus on a small amount of games they showed, which I'll actually talk about in a different video when I decide on what my favorite reveals were of E3 2018. In the near future. What I want to discuss is one thing I feel Sony does better than most in regards to their reveals and their main exclusive offerings in general, with this E3 being no exception really. Regardless of what you may think about modern day AAA gaming when it comes to gameplay, advancements or or lack thereof in many cases, and game design for many companies who are classed as AAA. As you may know already by now, I moan about these things all the time on this channel. But there's one thing that that Sony do very, very well indeed. That can get them out of many jams, and it's kind of done this E3 as well, to a degree. If their performance wasn't so bad, Sony play the AAA game. They play the AAA game, without a doubt, and they've become very, very good at it. I find that they are one of the few studios who can present their games in such a way you can't help but feel that they have taken the time and dedication to achieving a visual, and I hate to say it, Hollywood type production when it comes to not only how their games look, but how they show them off. It's this, of course, that grabs much of the attention that their games receive, and over the course of their exclusive games throughout all their consoles, for the most part, they have arrived at the PS4 and have, in my mind, pretty much mastered the high budget AAA reveal of a title in a way that grabs people's attention visually, as well as making them believe that their characters could. That Sony's characters, or the games from their exclusives, could very well be real people in real movies. Now, of course, much of this can be quite deceptive, with many of their trailers, as well as many other companies offering those somewhat scripted gameplay demonstrations, where it's believed to be using in-game graphics, which many of these games do, and sometimes do not, and where events on screen take place in such perfect fashion that it makes the general gameplay look even more epic than the average player will actually experience. The latest trailer for The Last of Us 2 was rife with this type of scripted gameplay demonstration, as well as gameplay from the Ghosts of Tsushima. And unless you're an eagle-eyed gamer, you can easily be fooled into believing that this is exactly how the games will play out. Which don't get me wrong, much of what you see can indeed play out in some of those fashions. But these are still heavily scripted sequences, and you have to wonder how many attempts it might have taken to get the results they wanted, or they could have even just set up those demos specifically for those reveals, and you will perhaps never experience the exact same things, which at the end of the day, game trailers, have done this type of thing for years, where they have specifically crafted demos that sometimes never see the light of day in the actual game. But in many ways, it doesn't matter, because this is exactly what they want you to take away from these reveal trailers. They want you to be blown away, to have the games looking as best as they possibly can, without the potential mistakes of an actual player, an actual gamer playing those sequences and messing up the demo because they didn't activate a sequence in a way that was planned. Of course, that's what makes the game more real to gamers who want to see real gameplay. But in a trailer, I can understand why they take these routes, and Sony deliver where many don't, even when it comes to visually incredible looking games that of course have huge story emphasis as well. Something that Sony once again are becoming the masters of, in terms of getting people intrigued and excited. This is another reason why I feel the new God of War got as much attention as it did. Not just because it looked visually stunning, but also how they perfectly pushed the new narrative of Kratos, a character who was plagued in the past, but felt over the top and cheesy as hell. But this time they humanized him a lot more, and were able to deliver a trailer that grabbed the attention of people who had never even touched a God of War title before. I have a few friends, like this. You can see this in all of their recent big budget games that are essentially exclusive to their platforms. Titles like Uncharted 4, Horizon Zero Dawn, Detroit Become Human, Uncharted Lost Legacy, Spider-Man, Days Gone, God of War, like I mentioned, as well as The Last of Us 2, the Order 1886, Until Dawn, wealth of games there, and these types of visual-looking games, with Hollywood-focused story-like narratives and cinematic-like gameplay, has grabbed a crowd of eager followers who are lapping them up one by one. Once again, regardless of what you might think of their gameplay advances or lack thereof from other opinions, sometimes including mine, Sony rolled up to E3 with a terrible format, that just didn't work for them. But the games they showed from a visual and intriguing point of view have once again won many over with their lavish presentations, AAA like budgets and well scripted trailers, and it even makes people not care that most of these games announced and even coming this year. For a very large portion of them, people will wait, and convinced in the knowledge that because of how these games look, they can't be anything more than AAA gaming perfection, which of course is, from my perspective, is horseshit. But at the same time, Ghost of Tsushima got its claws into me in the exact same way that Sony wanted, and this is where their AAA money towards key things in their offerings will continue to win people over, even when they have absolute dire E3 press conferences, and presentations. Anyway, I just wanted to give just my perspective on how I, just a little different perspective on, how I look at these companies sometimes, regardless of the events that they're appearing at and stuff, because obviously we got, there's a wealth of thoughts about how Sony's presentation went on the internet, and I think, the vast majority would agree, how the Sony presentation went, unless you're actually drunk on Sony water, as the meme goes, But anyway, like I said, overall, I thought their presentation, wasn't great at all. But their games, for the most part, certainly had that wow factor, and sometimes that can see these companies through. Not for me this particular time. Well, even though there just one or two games that piqued my interest, but not for me this time. But for the general public, when you look at the outside world and they see these games, they're not going to care how that Sony E3 press conference went, because most of those people are not watching it. These, the people who are going to buy these games in bulk, the people who push God of War into new greatest sales numbers, they never watched E3, so they're going to see the trailer on TV and just be blown away visually by what they're seeing. And unfortunately, I say unfortunately, sometimes it works, but unfortunately, from a gamer perspective, like mine, unless that game turns out to be absolutely phenomenal, that can be considered a bad thing. But anyway, I'm waffling off here. But overall, I thought their presentation was great, like I said. But I'd probably score their presentation itself, a 5 or not even a 6, out of 10 if you want to score, pretty average overall, But hey, that's just my opinion, right? Let me know yours, of course. And last up, we have Nintendo, which certainly left many people with mixed feelings. And I can't wait to give you my feelings on their E3, which isn't over yet. So I'm waiting until it is, and hopefully I'll have a video on Friday about that. But anyway, thanks for listening as always, people. And as I keep saying, I'll respond to everyone who comments in my comments section. I appreciate everyone who gives me feedback. Obviously the positive stuff is great, but I do receive a bit of negative feedback sometimes. But hey, that's all part of the game, right? So yeah, as always, thanks for listening. Let me know your thoughts, and peace.